Hello everyone, welcome back to Rock Security, where you can learn how to protect yourself online from cyber criminals. My name is Roxana and I will be your host for today. And today we're going to talk about personal security. Today we're going to talk about the hot topic of NHS track and trace app and what security concerns you might have for it. And I'm going to give my opinion from a perspective of a cybersecurity enthusiast. So let's get into it and see what can we find out about it. Before we begin, please subscribe, smash that like button, and comment down below what you think about the app. Comment anything. Say how beautiful it is where you are or not. How high is the temperature? Because I'm boiling in here, literally, and I have to have my windows closed. I'm not having fun. But I did do my hair today, so comment down below and be grateful that I did my hair today for you. Thank you. Let's start. Smash that like button. Thank you. Before we begin, let's first talk about how the app track and trace the virus, okay? So, first of all, you have to download the app. Just obviously. You have to download the app and you also have to enable your Bluetooth connection, and that's it. That's step one. Let's go to step two. Step two, you need to provide the first part of your postcode. Anybody that lives in UK kind of knows, because we all have to deal with this. Your postcode is technically divided in two parts. So if, for example, if you live in London, you have to put E1 and that's it. You allow permissions to the app to send you notifications, because I know a lot of apps will ask for that. And you move on with your life. You go ahead to your day, you go shopping, you go meet your friends, 2-meter distance, socially distance everyone, careful. Your phone would do something in the background, which I will explain after we go through the steps. So this was 3. 4, in case you have any symptoms, you have to report the symptoms, right? Easy. You go into the app and then you say, I have symptoms. They will ask you to check exactly what symptoms you have. So you can have like fever, dry cough, shortness of breath, headaches, sore throat, all the goodies that this disease is coming with. And now it's when the fun begins. So when you have symptoms, step 5 is the data is analyzed. There is an artificial intelligence thing in the background. Nobody looks at your answers. There is a robot doing it. Technology. You love it. It analyzes your answer and it decides if you should isolate for 14 days or if you shouldn't isolate for 14 days. And it will tell you what to do. If it tells you to isolate for 14 days, please do isolate for 14 days. Don't risk other people's lives. Thank you. 6. The 6th step in this whole thing is an alert is sent to the people that you've been in contact with. In the sense of like, I'll explain in a minute how the technology behind it is, but it will contact the people that you've been around it, and they have the app as well. The artificial intelligence looks over the risk and looks over the phones that you've been around, because it doesn't look over it doesn't know your face. So it looks over your phone, the phones that you've been around, and it categorizes them if they're high risk or low risk. And it sends notifications to the phones that are in the high risk category. And those phones are being told that the people that have the phones to isolate for 14 days. After that, the person who initially reported, let's say you in this situation, after they've contacted the people that you've been in close proximity with and that are high risk, you will be prompted to go and get a test. And then, based on the results of the test, number 8 comes. Number 8 is the test results. If you're found positive, your contacts are not going to be contacted again, and they're just going to be let to isolate for 14 days, obviously. But if you're found negative, the people that you've been around are being contacted through their phones to stop the self-isolation because it was a false alarm. That's the whole thing. Now, let's get to the juicy part. I know you're here for that. You're not here to hear me out how this app works. Easy, you've read 10,000 articles about it. I know I did. Now, let's see how the contact tracing works. To begin with, I just want to emphasize the data will not be stored centrally by NHS or anybody else. The data will be stored on your phone. So after you install the app, your app will be given, technically your app and your phone, because they're all a unit, will be given a globally identified ID, which is called a GUID. So when I say an ID, I mean a GUID. It's a unique ID. Nobody else will have your ID other than you, and that's it. And it's an 128 GUID, which it's a very random number, pretty big, 128 numbers, it's pretty big. It's not insanely big, but it's, from a security point of view, it's decent. That's technically what identifies your phone. It doesn't identify you as a person, it just identifies your phone. And then when you log into the device, alongside your ID, will also ask for the first part of the postcode, and also it will record the phone model that you have. The reason why they record the phone model is because each phone has different signal strength, and they're creating the app, as far as I found. They're creating the app and they need to keep in mind all these variables, and they need to put all these variables in place for them to actually figure out how close were you from the other person. That's how they identify how close or far were you from the other person, through the signal strength from both phones and so on. It's cool. It's not that new of a technology. It's okay. It's been around for a while. Don't think about this like it's not breaking news or anything like that. It's just how it works technically. So your phone will also agree with the centralized system. So like the big thing is like the big cloud is the centralized system technically. So your phone will agree certain keys with the centralized system, cryptographic keys, that they will exchange certain data. And I'll get to the data in a minute, because it's not that scary. It's less scary than we thought it is, in a way, than I thought it is to begin with. So, and while you go around, you meet with people 2 meters apart, you finally see them, you finally see your friends, even though you can't hug them. Your phones would communicate. So when two phones communicate, they exchange a key that identifies that specific phone, and it will create kind of like a bubble of information when it comes to that specific user ID that your phone has been in proximity with. And it will put in that bubble of information, it will put things like the user ID, how close were the phones, for how long were closed, and these type of things. It doesn't necessarily store the location that you've been in and stuff like that, so don't worry, nobody's following you around. It's just measuring how close you've been and for how long. And it creates this like bubble, or for the people who use Excel or in databases, it just creates a line in your Excel sheet. Easy, no problem. ID, for how long and how far. That's it. Easy. And then keeps doing that for every single phone that it comes in proximity with. Well, it doesn't do it forever, because all that data has a cycle of 28 days. So if you haven't been in contact with anyone, you haven't, you're okay, nobody around you was sick or anything like that, the phones that your phone has been in contact with 28 days ago, tomorrow, for example, they will be deleted from your phone. It has like a cycle. It doesn't clog up your phone to begin with. The data is not that big, so from a memory point of view, it should be fine. And it has a cycle. It keeps deleting. It only keeps the data in the phone that is useful. 1 and 2, once this whole situation ends, the government has agreed with the company that's helping them with the technology, which is a sub-company of VMware. Some of your nerds know what I'm talking about. If you don't, that's fine. You don't have to Google it. It's just a technology company. Take it like that. Once it's done, the data won't remain anywhere. It will just either go into the government servers, or will be deleted permanently. Everything will be deleted permanently. That's fine. It's not much information to begin with, so you know. Right. Now, every single day, your phone will communicate with the central system. You see this cloud in here? Yeah, that's the central system. Every single day, your phone will pull the data down and download the data from the central system. This data contains the IDs of the phones that are technically reported to be infected. The people who have been infected, those IDs will be pulled down and reported as being infectious. Your phone goes through all that data and sees if it can match any of them. It just compares the spreadsheets. So if it finds a match, you're being alerted. If it doesn't, everything moves on. No problem. And then it goes through a cycle every single day. Like that. If you've been infected, when you introduce your symptoms, it will ask you to upload to the main server, to the main cloud. It will ask you to upload the keys, which is the bubbles, the lines in the Excel spreadsheet that were added in the past 14 days. Because those are technically the people who that person has been in contact with, and the system will take that on board and try to kind of monitor those people. And this is how the main system, the cloudiness in here, will analyze that 14 data, and depending on how close you've been to that person or for how long and things like that, it will categorize those IDs or bubbles into high risk or low risk. And the people that are high risk, the phones that are high risk, are technically notified, told to shield, and you go down the rest of the steps. You go and get tested. If you're positive, they're gonna keep being told to stay in quarantine for 14 days. If you don't, everybody's happy and you go outside and you move on with your life 2 meters around from everyone outside your household. There is another variable in here. There are actually two other situations other than the ones that I've explained in case you get a test. In case you don't get tested, in case you don't contact and go and get tested, they've thought about that as well, each one with their own. In case you don't go and get tested, the app will go ahead and analyze other variables. So if you don't get a test, but too few of your contacts report symptoms to statistically suggest that you are infectious, you're not the person who's spreading it around. So technically, the artificial intelligence analyzes the data and says, based on some parameters, it doesn't look like this person is the person who's spreading the disease, because there are not that many people around, and it just might be a coincidence that the few people that he's been in proximity contact have symptoms. That means that you are not the person who's infectious and you're not the person who's spreading it, and it just comes from another source, from another person, from their contacts, for example. And the system technically classifies you as not infectious. Everybody's being told that everything's safe. You get out of quarantine, they get out of quarantine, everybody's fine. But on the other side, if you do not get a test and enough of your contacts are reporting symptoms, because even if you've been told by the app to isolate, when you get symptoms, do report them. This whole app, it's based on people actually downloading, having the phone with them at all times when they're outside the house, reporting when they have symptoms of any sort related to the virus. So please do report it, install it, report it. I would prefer you crashing the app rather than the app not having enough users. So just saying. So in the case that you don't get a test and enough of your contacts are also reporting that they have symptoms, everybody's being told to isolate, and it's the same thing as second scenario from when you get the app, when you get the test. When it comes to the security, as I've said, it gathers very little data. It gathers proximity, it gathers for how long you've been in that proximity, it gathers IDs, which are very much anonymous, and no other information gets to the central system. But I do want you to keep in mind that some people have raised the fact that in order for the phones to communicate with the central system, they need to have an IP address, obviously. And they do. But that IP address stops at the front end. The central system is divided into the front end, which handles all the pretty stuff. That's kind of what it is. And how like the user interact with the app and so on. So the front end, yes, does see your IP address, your phone's IP address. But the back end that actually analyzes all the data doesn't know, they only know the keys to encrypt and decrypt that they've been exchanged initially with the app, so they can have a communication, and that's it. The NHS system cannot identify you as a person, and the system that NHS uses, they don't intercommunicate with the system. This system is very much independent, it does its own thing, and when you go to register for a test, you will be prompted to a different system to go and register, put data, and so on. The track and trace app doesn't run on the same system as the test and trace system that is in place right now. Those two systems don't interact unless when you go and get a test, you will be prompted to go into the different one or to call to 119 and book your test. This is why the app has also the option of not getting a test, so they cover all their ground. What do I think about it? From the research that I've done, and I'm gonna link down below all the websites and all the government websites, from the research that I've done, I think it's a pretty good solution. It's not a solution, it's part of the solution, and I think it's pretty good. I do appreciate all the data is encrypted. They cannot identify me personally unless I interact with different systems. And they've put in place, from what the National Cybersecurity Center is reporting, they've put in place a lot of security systems, so the monitoring behind it, it's not extremely invasive. And it would only know numbers. It literally, the artificial intelligence behind it, it will only compare numbers. It won't actually reach who you are as a person. I think it's not as bad as I thought it's gonna be. I'm a tiny bit impressed, just a little bit. They have their problems, don't get me wrong. And I think they're gonna improve these solutions more and more as we go along. I also think that this should have been implemented 2 months ago, not now. Just my personal opinion. I also think that we should have implemented track and trace to begin with, like the entire system of track and trace, including phone calls, apps, and everything a few months ago, right when the lockdown started. I also know how the development of the apps are working, and there's so many pieces of the puzzle that on a regular basis an app can take from a month to 3 to 6 months to develop. It depends how complicated it is. And in a way, worst case scenario, it's impressive that they finished it to trial it now, like 2 weeks ago when they finished, when they started trialing it. But I also think that compared to Germany, for example, which they've implemented a worse version than what there is currently in UK being trialed, but at least they implemented something. At least they started doing something early on. Maybe that's why they have lower cases. That's an opinion that belongs to somebody else. Not me, not necessarily me. I just have security opinions at the level that I know. So I do think that they should have implemented it way earlier into the process. But the way it is right now, I think it's a pretty good app and it's a pretty good system. They do go in their article on the National Cybersecurity Center website, they do go through different approaches and why they consider this approach compared to any other approach. It's a great read if you want to know exactly how they got there and so on. I think it's gonna bring pretty good value to everybody's lives. I'm very excited to use it. I'm very excited to play with it and break it, even though there's not much to play with it anyway. But I'm very excited to have it on my phone, and that's kind of it. There is plenty of improvement for them to do in the next months, which they will once it gets out and once it gets out to everybody in UK. And I think we're gonna get to a point where it's gonna be really good. But for what it is now and how it is trialed now, I think it's pretty good. From a security point of view, it doesn't take many things. It's very hard to be identified. There will be certain situation, because there's always a situation where, as I've said in my previous video, in the May cybersecurity news video, there's always a person that's smarter, and there's always a person that can figure out how to hack into somebody's system. So there will be people who try to hack it. They will 100% have a lot, and I think there are people right now who are trying to hack it in any shape or form and trying to figure out how to get personal information and so on. But I think the way they structured it and the way the security is handled, with everything being encrypted and the data that is gathered, is very small. I honestly thought that it's gonna gather way too more than this. The whole test and trace system has some problems when it comes to gathering phone numbers and calling people and stuff like that. I can do a whole other video about it. There are more concerns about that when it comes to security compared to this app. I just wanted to make this video because I think it's very interesting, and it's something new that it's about to come to be rolled out to the entire country. It was very interesting to actually do the research for it and get into it and see how they actually handle the data in the background and what they actually gather when it comes to data. So this is it from me. Consider me mildly impressed, not impressed, just mildly. I applaud all the essential workers, NHS workers, drivers, grocery stores workers, everybody that's working right now. I applaud you, who are literally getting us from the house, and we're trying to do our best to not infect too many people, I guess. But I think this app is gonna bring something really interesting, as long as they get their stuff together so it can actually be released, so it breaks, because when it breaks, that's when you learn. And that's it from me today. Thank you for watching. Please do stay safe, protect yourself, protect your devices, and stay informed. It's very important right now. Follow me on Instagram, follow Rock Security on Instagram. We have a lot of interesting things happening out there. Some really good information. Also, please do subscribe. It helps out this channel so much. We're trying to get all this information to everyone, and I just want people to be informed, and I just want people to know that cybersecurity is not scary. It's, with a bit of knowledge, it's actually pretty fun. And I just want you to stay safe, and I just want you to be aware of everything that's happening around you and how your devices are interacting with other devices and the rest of the internet. So stay safe, protect yourself, and protect your devices. See you next time. Thanks for watching.